How do you get into top MSW programs? Stick around with me and let's go through it today on this episode of Navigating Academia. What's up, everybody? My name is Dr. Phoenix Singh, and I'm your personal grad school coach and academic mentor. It's a pleasure to have you here with me today. I love you. I appreciate you. Hit that like and subscribe button, and let's get right into it. How on earth do you get into one of these top MSW programs? It's a really stressful process. I know because I've been there 2 times myself. And so because of that, I've recognized throughout the years that there are really 7 key things that you need to be able to get into a leading MSW program, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, this right here is the bullshit button.
Bullshit detected. Take precautions.
Okay, so whenever you hear a sound like that, you know that the advice that you have gotten in the past probably is some BS. So let's go ahead and get right into it. What I like to call the first 5 of these 7 is what I refer to as the 5 lies. Why do I call them that? Think about a normal curve, a normal distribution. Remember that within 1 standard deviation of the norm, right, you end up getting what? 68% of the data. The majority of the data is underneath there. Well, if you have these 5 things, you are literally right underneath that 1 standard dev in either direction. In other words, you do need these 5 things. If you don't have these 5 things, the likelihood you're going to get into your target program is honestly quite low. But if you do have all 5, it does not mean that you're going to get in somewhere, all right? Unfortunately, programs like MSW programs, the acceptance rates are at an all-time low. After COVID, there's been an explosion in the half-decade since in terms of how to be able to get into these places. A lot of people had a lot of mental health problems, and because of that, they saw the power of evidence-based mental health care practices. Now they want to get in on the action. They want to get into the game, and people who've been planning on applying for MSW programs for the majority of their life now are competing with individuals who have been out there in the workforce for decades and decades. They're applying now too. So it's harder now than ever to be able to get in. So let's get right into it. The first thing is your cumulative GPA. Now, what I want you to do is contact your target MSW programs. I recommend applying to 3 to 5. Some people would say that I'm insane, but I'll tell you that I've been in academia now for 2 decades, and very consistently, people who are applying to 10, 15, even 20 programs most likely are going to get 10, 15, 20 rejections because they're not spending a sufficient amount of time researching and establishing in their application materials why it is that this program is the best fit for them. So again, I highly recommend focusing on 3 to 5 programs. I have an over 80% success rate in getting applicants into these programs. So I can tell you right now that this is very true. Okay, I've been doing this for a long time. So first one, GPA, median or above. Contact the programs you're interested in going to. Usually there'll be some sort of head of admissions that you can get in contact with, or an admissions officer or counselor. Get in touch with them, ask them, what is the median GPA of the last 2 or 3 cohorts that have entered the program? The second is take into consideration whether or not that program requires a standardized test score. For example, something like the GRE. If it does, obviously make sure that you bust your butt to be able to get a great GRE score. And what is a great GRE score? Obviously as high as possible. But again, if you can find out if it's required, the median or above GRE score for that particular set of target programs, and you can just get there at that median score, you're good to go. That's really what you need, I promise you. Why? Because GPA and GRE are really only used in the actuarial phase of the actual application process. In other words, you're going to be absolutely fine if you have a median or above GPA and GRE. All right, number 1. Number 2. Number 3 is letters of recommendation. You want 3 phenomenal letters of recommendation, preferably 1 from a course during undergrad that is something related to mental health care. For example, it could be a psychology course, right? But you want a course that you did exceptionally well in, where you went to office hours, you participated actively, where there was a faculty member who you cared about, who cared about you, and this person is going to discuss your academic background and accomplishments, GPA, academic awards, dean's list, all that good stuff. Then you're going to have somebody talk about you clinically, and we're going to talk about research and clinical experience in just a moment, but somebody who knows you very well from a clinical perspective. Maybe you did a clinical internship, maybe you worked for a hotline or a chat line, and there was someone who directly supervised you in terms of your performance. That's the person who should write that letter, but they're not going to talk anything about your academic performance. Academic person isn't going to talk about your clinical performance. Third, ideally, you're going to have someone who served the role of a research supervisor. If you have an individual like that, this is going to be the best. Maybe you were in a lab for, let's just say, 1 full semester or more would be even better. Doesn't matter whether or not the lab that you ended up being a research assistant in was a social work lab or not. Even if it's something that is only partially related. For example, I'm a psychologist. We ended up, for me, undergrad, I ended up in labs for things like behavioral genetics. So it's still relevant, but a little bit of a stretch, but it still totally worked. Really, perception is reality in this case, and what you want to show is that you are really committed to the creation of new knowledge. All right, so that's what they're looking for here. So those are the things that you need, along with number 4 and number 5, which are practical experience. Again, this could be a volunteer position, it could be an internship, even a part-time or a full-time job working with vulnerable populations, preferably in some sort of a clinical context. Working at a hospital, working at a home for the elderly, working at a homeless shelter, whatever it happens to be, crisis care line. But really something where you're working on the day-to-day with individuals from these marginalized populations. And last but not least is number 5, which is research experience. Like I mentioned, working in a lab. If you have these 5 things, congratulations, you need all 5, but you will not get into programs based exclusively on those 5. You need some additional spices to get into top programs. So what are those spices? I would argue that there are 3. The first is conference papers or posters, but not at university conferences, not at undergrad exclusive conferences, at national or international conferences that have what I would refer to as McDonald's names. The names of the associations that put on these conferences are ones that are known, liked, and trusted by leaders in the field. Are those harder to get into? Yeah, of course. But to be honest with you, it's really not that bad. My recommendation, if you don't know how to be able to construct posters or write paper and poster proposals to get accepted to leading programs, check out publicationacademy.com. They have by far the best training courses on the internet when it comes to how to be able to prepare those materials and also how to get your research published in high impact factor journals. So publicationacademy.com, check them out, all right? That's conference presentations. Relatedly, like I mentioned for PA.com, is peer-reviewed publications. If you can get 1 or more peer-reviewed journal articles in an impact factor journal, I'm telling you right now, you will be so above and beyond the competition. Even if those publications, like I mentioned, are just marginally related to social work, you will be at the top of the queue, I promise you. And this can make up for all sorts of things. If you have a publication, and if this is the median GPA and you're right here, you still will be more competitive than people who are up here, I'm telling you right now. And last but not least is personal connections. Now, it is true that personal connections are going to help you less for an MSW compared to, let's say, that you're doing something like a PhD in clinical psychology. MSW programs, personal connections will help you less, but still, everything helps, especially when it comes to people knowing you on the inside with the admissions committees. All right, so those are the ones that I recommend. Now, I know that that's 8 instead of 7. Why do I end up saying 7? Because a lot of programs don't require the GRE. So remember, the 5 lies: median or above GPA, median or above test scores, 3 amazing letters of recommendation, practical experience, research experience. That'll get you in, right?
Bullshit level, DEFCON 5.
There you go. No, right? Conference presentations, peer-reviewed publications, personal connections. I believe in you. You can do this. Is it going to be hard? Yes. If you need help developing your application materials or mastering and kicking some butt in terms of your interview, please get in touch with me. You can book a session with me one-on-one at www.gradschoolapplicationcoach.com. And also make sure to comment below because I'd love to hear your thoughts. Appreciate you guys, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Peace. Thank you so much for stopping by, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you here as always. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more in this series on navigating academia, please click on one of these links over here to be able to view more original content. I hope to see you there.